What's up, guys? It's Coach Gaglione here. This is another edition of the Powerlifting for the People podcast. We got a strong lady here today. Kenna, how you doing?
Doing good.
Great. So we just finished a workout. So if we're huffing and puffing or sweating a little bit, just give us a pass. So we just did some lower body training. Just finished up a good workout. So people that are watching or listening, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you got going on right now?
I just do that.
It's
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Kenna Smoak. I'm a strength and conditioning coach at Army West Point, the U.S. Military Academy. I work with Olympic sports there and in the athletics department. So that's my normal setting. And then recently, over this past year, I've gotten into powerlifting on my own and decided to drive up and learn a little bit more about the sport I'm doing because it's very different than how I train my athletes.
Very cool. It's great, and we definitely want to talk about why you wanted to become a strength coach, how you got into it, and then also maybe some tips obviously it's not like a ton of females, I'd say, in the collegiate sector, so we'll definitely talk about that a little bit. But before we get into that, I want to rewind a little bit and talk about just how you got into lifting. Did you play sports growing up? What got you into strength training and just get into the weight room for when you first started?
Okay. I've been an athlete my whole life, pretty much. I started playing football from Atlanta, Georgia, so about 8 years old and on. Also did some track, some softball, but football was my main love. So about middle school time, my parents were kind of like, "Ooh, I don't know if she should go to high school ball, or middle school ball, I don't know." So it became my dad's sole mission to break me with training. Well, I'm just gonna break her. We're gonna train so hard that she's gonna hate it and not want any part of this. Well, I fell in love with it. I knew right then and there, I gotta do this my entire life. Never missed a day. I was sold at 12 years old. And so it's just been a progression of that really ever since.
And then, so that's kind of funny that it kind of backfired.
Oh, wait, completely.
So what were you, how old were you when you first started actually doing all that stuff? What?
I think I was 11, 12.
So really,
so
pretty young.
Yeah.
How did the going from into high school and then college yourself? How did your training evolve? Okay. What kind of mistakes did you make? Because obviously that's pretty.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I touched a barbell was 8th grade, and I remember it was in my friend's buddy's my friend's neighbor's garage. It was the really small bench with the sand weights. And I remember struggling with 80 pounds. Mm-hmm. So what was that kind of progression like when you were just because obviously you started very young. I'm sure you went through a lot of different phases of maybe you focus on some more exercise than the others. Maybe you made some mistakes. Mm-hmm. What was that like?
Well, actually, I played football, and then my senior year of high school, I ended up having my first back surgery. So that completely shut everything down and really changed my route as a person. Okay, I can't be athlete for a little while. I still have to do this.
You gotta figure out something.
Exactly. So I'm well, I'm gonna be a college strength coach, and it's been that direction really ever since. But going through that, I was kind of lost for a little while, and can't lift your spine right after surgery. There's that window. But what could I do? I could jog a little bit. I could clean up my diet. I could be obsessive with my rehab. I could do all those little things, and that was just kind of how I attacked it. And then that led to people being like, "Oh, you have a good bit of muscle, and you've leaned out a little bit since your surgery. Why don't you do a figure show?" So that started, and then I kept up my jogging, running. That led to some full marathons. And then I did some physique training, all kind of while interning at Division I universities. I went to University of Alabama, interned in that weight room, got my master's degree in sport science and pedagogy at Gardner-Webb University, and was always, I guess, one of those coaches that I didn't just talk about it. I was just all about it. I was, active under the bar, training myself. So my athletes saw me go through that and really helped create that buy-in. And that's kind of in my story as an athlete, how it's evolved. And now I'm definitely more coach mode.
Sure.
And powerlifting something that, is, I can fit in my daily schedule as a coach.
Keeps you competitive.
Yeah, it keeps me competitive, feeds that fire, but I don't have to be quite as obsessive and restrictive on the details that say getting on stage requires.
Yeah.
So it's harder in some ways, but in different ways, and it's really I hate the word balance, but it's it's a good lifestyle complement to my career.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. I think kind of glossed over the back surgery.
Oh yeah.
Because I know you're so passionate about what you do, and but I want to, because some people may say like you have back surgery now, and then maybe
Yeah, I had 2 of them actually.
Yeah,
so
that's like kind of like a big deal. So, and actually, I think when we first started talking a little bit, we've had girls like go have back surgery, and then she went on to deadlift 395 in a meet, which you don't really see that. Like,
Yeah.
And even not even just from a physical standpoint, but just from a mental standpoint, like to overcome. Am I gonna hurt myself?
Yeah.
So if you have some advice for people maybe that have, it could be a major injury, it could be surgery, maybe they're coming back from something. What advice can you give them to kind of help get them back to like where they started? And because I'm sure like a lot of people they ask themselves, is this it? Right? They have some sort of big injury. Maybe they tear a muscle, maybe they tear a pec, maybe they have surgery. Am I done? Right?
Yeah.
That's always a question. So what was kind of going through your head when that happened, and how did you kind of overcome that fear to start training again and actually compete in something?
Yeah. Like going back, I had my first surgery in high school, and then I had my second one last summer. Same disc, same level, and just maturity, one thing, and then my experience as a coach and seeing other things. It made the second experience, I don't want so much easier the way I attacked it.
You kind of knew going into it, like, okay, I've done this before, I've been here.
And what really like grounded me and helped me is just I had to focus on the present, which is so hard for an athlete because you're always forward thinking.
Yeah.
Like my 6-month plan, my 5-year plan, where I want to be, and I just had to focus on that day. What can I do today? What are my small victories today? How can I get 1% better today?
That's big.
And sometimes that 1% better is, do I just need to go home and lay down with my feet up? And I did enough rehab. And that's, a very hard thing to grasp as an athlete, but I just was really tried to be in the present, be in the moment, and make my decisions based on that, not like trying to crunch out, like, speed the progression, just focus on one day at a time.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's big, and I know it can be really hard now because you could see what everyone's doing, you can see what your competition is doing, you could see what all these great, people tend to follow also like these outliers that are like 0.01% of the people, and that's kind of who we compare ourselves to, right? What this girl's lifting, what this guy's lifting, and we're not really like looking at like the big picture of like how many people can actually, maybe for some of the females out there, like how many girls like maybe on Instagram it's like, oh my god, all these girls deadlifting 500 now, right? But really in the grand scheme of things, it's like this fraction of a fraction of a fraction, right? Even like some of maybe the athletes that you see, like this is like, think about how many athletes are in like middle school, high school programs, and like just that little small percentage can like play at a collegiate level, right? Even if it's D3 or D2, whatever, it's still. So I think figuring. I like what you said. Like I'm going to focus on what can I do, not what I can't. That's big, because there's always something you could probably do to get better, right?
Yes.
Even if it's how you eat, how you sleep.
Exactly.
You're getting a better mindset. A lot of people kind of forget like those little things, and then like, okay, I'm just going to focus on today, and how can I like win the day, and how can I like take that next step. I'm not going to worry about what I did in the past.
Exactly. That's another. You can't dwell on, what your previous best was, because it obviously wasn't working. You wouldn't have gotten hurt. You obviously like had a hole in there to get to that point, or you wouldn't be where you are now. And so then now's your chance. It's your opportunity to fix it.
Right. And at the end of the day, like that's not where you are. So I always say like today is just a marker in time. It just kind of tells you where you're at, and if I can kind of just make a step forward, that's like a step in like the right direction, which is really good. So yeah, I think that's great. And just realize like I think patience is key. Patience is key in everything. And it's hard to say if you're like on the operating table, like to have patience.
Yeah.
Like, it's like probably the last thing you're thinking about.
I always I have to tell myself like patience is an action word. By being patient, you were doing something productive.
Yeah. And I know using today's example, I know you're just getting back into the swing of things. You did some sets at 300. And I know like you're looking to maybe squat maybe 400.
Yeah.
But we're not like we didn't have to do 400 today.
No, exactly.
And it's like I want to we focus on like working some of those kinks out and things like that. So and it's not like you could have done more weight.
Yeah.
But there were some technical things you were working on.
Exactly.
Some things to fix. So I think that's like a really good mindset. Like don't be in such like a rush. I think that kind of goes, and I think that's sometimes tough as an athlete because sometimes you have that finite like window. But if you could just like stay in it for the long haul and just be patient, you could really like go a lot further. I think people overestimate what they can do in the short term, but underestimate what they could do year, in 2 years, in 3 years. So I think that was good when you said like these So cool. So did a little physique type stuff. What did you I know you said it was kind of not really fitting your lifestyle, but what did you kind of learn like getting on stage, and then what was that like prepping for some of those
Let's see. I did it.
competitions?
I did my first one when I was 18, so like 9 months after my first back surgery, and did it until through grad school. So it's been about 3 years since I've been on stage. I did national level, like physique and figure. I was kind of like a floater between the two divisions. The discipline I'll take in any part of my life that it taught me. As far as it not fitting my lifestyle, it did and it didn't, but I'm so performance driven that I would end up like getting a stress fracture 6 weeks out because my body fat was low and I was angry I couldn't run, or still trying to train really heavy, but I was also pushing the conditioning, and then I was working, and it got to where
Trying to maximize all these factors at the same time.
And then like getting hurt this past year, I was like, I don't know if I'll compete again when life settles down with my coaching career. Kind of had the itch, but then it's like I got hurt, and I woke up, and I was like, I just want to be able to squat and run. I really don't care what I look like. And so it really kind of put my values to the forefront. Like what gets me in the gym, it's not what I look like. And it might be different for other people, and that is okay. But it made me realize have I even really been chasing that wholeheartedly if it's not what I wake up thinking about? So it kind of redirected me.
Yeah, I think knowing like your why is like important. And I think for someone like yourself, like I know like for me, like as a coach, like you want to set the example. You want to, and I think if you're like, so I think just as coaches that work with athletes, that work with lifters, and I think we're always going to be a little bit more performance driven.
Yeah.
And I think it's tough. Like you said, it's really tough to kind of juggle all those different things.
Yeah, and it's not like you can look good and perform good, but there's like that window.
There's a tipping point.
Yeah, there's a point like, okay, you're doing a really big show, 6 weeks out, like you need to change your training, or you need to accept that it's not going to be what it was when you're a little heavier and a little stronger, and be okay with that. And it's just not what I want right now. I'm not going to talk in absolutes. I might get the itch again because I know what it takes to do it, but it's just not there right now.
And for the people that don't know, like, I know, like, for someone that works in a collegiate setting, we'll definitely talk a little bit. You might be up at like 4 or whatever in the morning, and then you're not done until late in the evening. So it's not exactly like sleep recovery, and it's not going to be like ideal, right?
Yeah.
So I think something like powerlifting, again, you could really go crazy with it, but at the end of the day, it's 3 lifts you got to figure out.
Exactly.
And if you wanted to even make it, you could push pull, you could do a single lift. Like I loved, especially for me, I try to make it a point to compete at least once a year. The only time that didn't happen in the past like 12, 13 years was the year I opened my business. But besides that, I've been able to, so like, I know like one year, I was traveling so much, I ended up just doing like a deadlift only. And I hit a PR in that, I hit a meet PR, and like that was like, for me, like that was great. I accomplished my goal. I stick to my kind of like, okay, my rule is I want to get on stage at least once a year. And that's like what I had time to prep for, like realistically, in order for me to perform at the level that I wanted, which is, so for me, like maybe 3 lifts wasn't in the cards, but I was able to do that deadlift only. It was a little less pressure. So I think for those that do have a hectic schedule, there's something, I think signing up for something, having that goal, something to work towards, can definitely kind of keep you on track too. Especially when life does get like crazy and you have all these other like obligations and stuff.
Like whenever if you're high level at anything, you're committed to anything, like it's going to take away from other areas of your life. So when you do sign up, you have to go in realizing that and being okay with that. Because I know for me, like in coaching, when I do a meet, it's completely dictated on my athlete's schedule. Like, okay, how many are going to be on campus? Are they home for summer? What are they doing? Am I going to be traveling in season?
Because I figure out where
exactly, because it's not about me. I want to be present for them. And, I don't want to just be coaching on the floor, going through the motions, thinking about, what my next session is, my next meal is. Like, I want to be there for them.
Yeah, that's definitely a hard balance.
Yeah.
I know, like, especially sometimes when you have one of those bigger, more higher priority workouts, like that's like all you're thinking about that day. So that like kind of takes up.
Get up like 3 in the morning and do it, or do I wait till after I've been on my feet all day? Like when do I squeeze in it?
And I know the way like kind of I think we do our programs here and stuff. Usually it's like really only a couple of times a month where we really have something like a real true like max effort day where we're really pushing it. So that way, like the other weeks, like, you know, if it's volume or speed work or whatever the case may be, you don't need to have such an alertness and such like, okay.
Yeah.
But on those days where we are testing ourselves, I do like to put a little more focus on like my eating and my recovery and things like that. You know, so it's kind of like, again, you can kind of balance it. Like I said, you can kind of adjust how you kind of get ready for meet. You don't necessarily have to squat 3 or 4 times a week like some of these, you know, national level lifters do to get results. You can, you know, maybe get away with just doing even doing the lifts once a week. If you hit it hard, you can still like make really good progress like that way. And a lot of great lifters have done that for, you know, many years. So you don't have to like copy what so and so lifter on Instagram is doing.
Yeah.
You could find a program that works for your schedule and your lifestyle, and kind of make progress off that. And just, you know, some people even do they might do like a 10 or 14 day like microcycle and really spread things out, and you know that might work well for some people. You can there's always something you can kind of do once, twice a week, whatever. So cool. So before we get into, I definitely want to talk about your job a little bit more. But I want to just talk about why powerlifting and what made you kind of sign up for your first competition, and what has the progression been like from like meet number 1 to your training now?
I've been in a weight. I've had the itch to do it, you know, many times. But with the figure physique world, it was like I did a show, I got a little bit of feedback. Like you just keep pushing and do another one because I was so close. Or you know, I was training with other girls around the country, and we were all like, oh well, we can just all do this show. And so it was like I kept, you know, getting kind of like, well, I'm so close, I'm almost there. I want to try again. I'll get strong later. I'll get strong later. And then it became like clear with my job and taking some time away from the stage that I want to get strong now. And so I was coaching at Marshall University last year, and I started looking up meets, and I saw that there was a bunch of them in Kentucky. So the first meet I did was like an RPS meet last April, and I was coaching women's basketball at the time. So we were on the road a lot, and that really kind of made training difficult. It, you know, one of those road trips flared up my back from 10 years previous. Had a few cortisone shots, got through the first meet, got my pro total I wanted. Then a couple weeks later, went to the ER, had my surgery last summer. So that one was just kind of like, we need to finish. And I want a pro total. And I strung together the lifts I need to string together to get that done. I'm not saying I would suggest that to everybody, but at that point in my life...
So do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, at that point in my life, I needed it. And
no, it's funny. I have I've never been able to kind of put all my lifts together on one day, but my best total still to this date happened. I didn't tear anything, but I definitely like kind of strained or popped something in like the back of my shoulder, probably like a rotator cuff deal, kind of weird. And I remember I couldn't squat. It was like during a peaking phase, and I remember I just took off from squatting and benching like during a peaking phase. I'm just gonna show up to the meet and like do my best. And I ended up like having a really good day, all things considering. I had like my best total. And I was just like, if something's hurting, I'll pull out. But like I think there's something to be said about like just finishing what you start.
Yes.
I think a lot of times and like if you know, listen to your body, and I'm sure if on that day, if something was like really wrong, like you would have stopped, right? But like go there and try. Like, you know, a lot of people like even in the gym, like, I'm not really feeling so good, or you know, you had this long car ride. Well, let's warm up. Let's take our time. And like, let's get like ready, because a lot of times I think we get in our own head, and I think a lot of times it's our mind that kind of fails before our body. Sometimes I'm sure you see that like working with athletes and stuff. So I think just finish what you start and just like do your best, bring your best for that day. And if you need to make adjustments, obviously be smart, don't hurt yourself. But you know, I think that a lot of times we're capable of so much more than you really realize. You know, so it's cool. It's definitely an inspiring story.
And then. So that was last summer. Then I took 7 months and did my next meet this past January, or my second meet. And I added about like 80 pounds
Which is
to
great.
that first total. So, you know, and a lot of it was, I was, in my mind, very conservative based on what I'd done in training. But it was just, I didn't know to string together like a total of, you know, squat, bench, and deadlift, how I would feel with my back, because I'm still not in the clear. I'm still
you're still working
adjusting
things
my
out.
life around this injury. So it was like, okay, I'm pretty confident about my bench, because I benched a lot because rehabbing my back, it was what I could do. But I still was conservative because it's like, well, if my low back cramps up, I don't even know if I can pull 315.
Which is smart.
So it was, once again, just like I'm gonna be back. I'm gonna be back and strong, and then get my lifts evaluated to know I'm on the right track and going again.
And there's nothing wrong with just like you're building momentum into the next one. And like I said, 80-pound increase is nothing to scoff at. It's a great increase, even if there's I always tell my guys and my girls, if you can hit a PR and there's still a little there, that's the best case scenario, because you can keep building on that. If you're really grinding out things all the time, it's kind of, even just from a mental standpoint, it's I don't know if it's it's that's it, and there's times where you got to fight those lifts, but that doesn't have, especially if you're a newer lifter, if your lifts are going up, great, you're not straight, okay. Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. You don't need to be in such a rush. Going back to what you said before. Cool. Really awesome. So yeah, you're doing great. Like I said, and you still, what's cool about that is you still have things you can work on and get better with. Yeah. And so you see there's so much potential there, which is awesome. So I want to talk about the job a little bit. We kind of mentioned before, there's not really a lot of females in the collegiate setting. What has it been like being a collegiate strength coach, and what was kind of attracted you to that? And I guess if you have any advice for people kind of that want to maybe get in a college setting, what can you kind of tell them about your job and what you do?
And in some ways it's I've never I grew up playing a lot of guy sports, so it was never oh, I'm going to be a female strength coach. It was just I'm going to be a strength coach.
Yeah, you didn't
I never really
attach that.
And so and then I found in my career, it's well, I didn't grow up, maybe playing sports with girls. So in coaching, it's been almost harder, when I've been assigned, a female team, to be ooh, how do I relate to them? I don't know. Ooh, can I say that? Are they going to get offended? So, it's almost been, just because of my journey, just growing up, with the boys, it's been almost a reverse, how to learn to coach girls. And, so I've just always tried to be the best strength coach I can be, and I happen to be a female. And if I attack it like I'm going to be the best coach possible,
you're not really worried about that so much.
My athletes aren't going to exactly think one way or the other. So that's kind of always been.
That's how you carry yourself.
Yeah, that's always just kind of been my attitude about it. And then as far as being a female in the field, you're definitely outnumbered, and it's been a learning process of you have to be true to yourself. Yeah. And you are female. You can be proud of that. But you have to be professional. You can't, if there's a gray area, you can't cross it, because then others are, gonna pull you on the side of being unprofessional, or oh yeah, she just wants to be in here to talk to the guys or the coaches or no, I'm here, I'm all business. So that's finding, with being who you are, what is considered professional. That's how you dress, how you stand, how you carry yourself, your body language. Find that reflects who you are, and, just stay true to that. That's, been, I guess, also for me too, doing the competing, it's been, because my athletes would know, oh, you're good on stage? Yeah, but you see how I train every day. I'm oh yeah, I can't believe that's even you. So it's, being very professional at work to, be taken seriously and get the respect you want from your athletes or male coworkers.
No, I think that's good. I think how you carry yourself and the attitude you kind of bring to the table definitely reflects, and I'm sure it shows in your training. And I'm sure your athletes kind of see that, and they're going to respect you that much more, because you're not just talking the talk.
Yeah.
You're walking the walk.
And that's why, even on times I've been hesitant to oh, should I train for this? I've always had my own personal performance goals, because my athletes see me go through that. Yeah. And then, they know that I'm not going to ask them to do anything they're not willing to do myself. Yeah. And sometimes that scares them a little, but, it's definitely, it helps with them buying in to what I bring.
Yeah, I know, to me, that's a big driving force of, why I still compete, because, I'm not, looking to set any world records, and kind of like yourself, for me, coaching comes first. So we definitely have that in common, but I think it's so important. I want to know, there's not like a program that I put out that I haven't kind of gone through or tested or an exercise, like I've kind of like done that like myself. So I think that's big. And I think that, I think more trainers, coaches, I think they need to, because sometimes, you know, they might put something out, they may hear something, but if you haven't like kind of gone through it yourself, I mean, you should kind of think twice before like, you know, actually trying that on, like, especially in the college setting. It's a little different what I do.
Yeah.
You know, you have other people, so maybe, I don't know if you talk about like how the relationships are like with the skill coach and how that works, and because if someone like doesn't like what we do, obviously they can just leave and not pay, whatever, but there's different when you're working with a team. You also have to consider, you know, that they're playing another sport. They're not a competitive lifter, and you also need to kind of obviously keep the coaches happy.
Oh,
things
yeah.
like that. So how does that like communication work with the sport coaches, and what's that?
A continuation of like whatever sport I have, like at Army I have sprint football, which guys under 178. I have women's rugby, men's soccer, and softball, and then cheerleading. So I'm an extension of all those programs. You know, what we do like represents that program. And we're in meetings weekly, bi-weekly with coaches, athletic trainers. We have like nutrition if it needs to be done. Like, it's really like holistic how we take care of the programs. And I'm just one piece, you know. At the end of the day, like, they have to be able to play their sport.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how strong and fast you are if you can't, put a ball through a hoop. It really doesn't matter.
That's priority number one.
Exactly.
Is there
and
skill?
I make that very clear to my sport coach. You get some sport coaches that are all about the numbers and want to see that data. I'm more like, okay, are we winning, and what are our injury reports looking like?
Yeah.
Because then we're.
It's a good point, and I think I know for myself, I know we're talking. We have like some athlete records and stuff, and I'm sure I don't know if you've seen. I'm sure you've been around long enough. I know, like, for me, like, I worked with wrestling the most out of any sport, and there was like certain trends. Like, for example, anyone that was like kind of all state that I worked with, and that was like, say, like under 200 pounds, they could do like 20 chin-ups. They were usually probably able to deadlift like 2.5 times body weight, like something like that. And anything more than that, didn't really like.
Exactly.
There's a certain point of like diminishing return, I think.
Yeah.
Like going from say like a 350 bench press to a 450 bench press. It's like if someone like, I don't know, like, but going from maybe a 200 pound bench press to a 315 bench press, there might be like a big return there, depending, like, say for football or something, right? So do you see like any like kind of do you have like strength standards, or do you just focus on, hey, we're getting better, how you feeling on the field, like how do you like kind of measure if like the athletes are doing like well?
Well, it's going to depend like on their position and their relative strength to that. And let's say like, okay, my whole team, we're all squatting twice their body weight. Why aren't we winning, for example? Well, it's like, okay, we're hitting that number, but we're grinding it out. We're not fast enough. So then it's like, do I take this group?
Your priority needs to change for those.
Like, what are we missing? Like, if we're hitting these strength standards, why aren't we getting the job done? And like taking a step back and looking at it like across the board. Okay, well, let's look at our acceleration. Let's look at our vertical jump. Let's look at, if we have a tendo unit, let's look at like our acceleration. How fast is it moving? Let's look at, how many sets at 90% we can hit with a limited recovery. Let's, look at those components that that sport demands rather than just a single number.
Cool. Yeah, so I think that it's going to be dependent like on the sport and position. There's so many factors. I know, like, there's going to be different standards for like heavyweight versus lightweight, and something like softball. I know, like there's, like I said, I'm sure that you probably see trends in each sport.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think everything's a little different. Obviously, if someone's a cross country runner versus a football player, having them, squat double body weight is going to be like, it's going to be different, right?
Yeah.
So, so I think that's really good. I think it's important for people that are, because I think sometimes, especially like as a powerlifter, understanding like, hey, like this is maybe, I don't want to put my bias onto this athlete, right? Because we still, for those people that are listening, we still work with athletes here, and the kind of level of expectation of how strong I need them to be is going to be a little bit different. And obviously, like, I want to make sure if their squats go up and their chin-ups go down, for example, like that's like a no-no for me.
Yeah.
Just for in general, for like, because if their their absolute strength is up but the relative strength is down, you got to consider like what if someone's a powerlifter, maybe it doesn't matter how many chins you can do, right? But if you need to move your body, or if your speed's going down, that sort of thing, or if you're vertical, if you could and if let's say your strength maintains, but then your vertical goes up, maybe that's good if you're like a basketball player.
Also, like I look at, okay, how much volume and size do we need to put on, this team or these athletes based on like, are they a non-contact sport, a contact sport, are they a collision sport? What's going to keep them safe? What do they need to like maximize their body? Like, are they taking hits, like,
like that,
or are they just like changing direction without anyone around them? Like, we need to take all those factors in to see, where our time is best spent.
I feel like I could talk to you for like hours on this, which is great, but for people that are like, so we'll wrap it up a little bit, but I'd love to, maybe at some point do like a part 2, whatever, and talk more, obviously we love, we can talk about this stuff all day. People are like, all right,
I know I could.
But no, it's good. No, I love it. So I think it's good. I think it's just, at the end of the day, like, so my buddy Mark Bell always says, like, how does this help? How does this hurt? Great question to ask yourself. Really simple. So it's really, because all this stuff is context specific, and I think everyone wants things that are black and white. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a spectrum for everything, and I think it's important to understand what your goals are, what your current situation is, and how are these things going to help me personally. So, I can give a powerlifting program to one person, and then I can give it to you, and let's say they work a 9 to 5 job, and you work, 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. job, right? Whatever, like half joking, but I can't expect you to do the same amount of volume as the person that has more recovery, right? So I think these things need to be adjusted, and I think the communication between the athlete, between the coaches, between any other coaches, sport coaches you're working with, I think that the communication is key, and the more information we can get, the more kind of adjustments we can make. I just have one more question, and then we'll kind of wrap up. So one thing that I know I always have struggled with, and I think we do a pretty good job of, is balancing like the individualization of what the athlete needs, but also the logistics of, like, you might have like a ton of kids in there, so like it can't be a complete like Johnny and Sally can't maybe get like completely separate stuff, but you still want to like individualize to a point, right? So like, how do you kind of balance like what they need, and also like, we have like whatever, I don't know how many kids you might have at a time, but let's say you have 20, 30, 40 kids at a time. How do you, what advice can you give to somebody for that situation?
First off, like, do no harm. You have to make sure your athletes are safe. You need to know what's going on with their bodies as far as an injury standpoint, because like they play sports, they're going to get hurt time to time. Might be soft tissue, hopefully that's all it is, but or something worse coming back from a surgery. So you have to make those adjustments first, to where like get your ego out of it. If this kid's not going to back squat, he's just going to front squat for the rest of his life because he wants to be all world in whatever sport he's playing, be okay with that. And sometimes like the best progression is to stop progressing.
This is where you're at, and we're going to
exactly like are there like for Olympic lifts, love them, but sometimes we don't do the full pull from the floor to catch.
Yeah, maybe you're just doing a pull from blocks.
And you know what? Am I getting more powerful? And that triple extension, am I decelerating with the bar like I need to? I'm getting what I need for their sport. Let's just stop it right there. And then there might be some that have more of a background, or just it comes more naturally too. Take the brakes off those kids. Let them go and have some fun with it. So it's just, do no harm.
Yeah, I think it's good to like be flexible. Joe DeFranco, I love this quote. He said, "Your workouts should be in pencil, not in pen." Like, don't be afraid to like, okay, we had back squat planned, let's goblet squat. Like, and that's fine. We're still getting the work in. Like, just because they didn't back squat for a week doesn't mean like they're gonna they're gonna all of a sudden like lose all their gains or whatever. And at the end of the day, it's like even for a powerlifter, like don't be afraid. Like that's or like you said, okay, whatever we were talking about. We were doing the pause squats at the end of your workout. Okay, this is maybe I had this weight planned, but my back's kind of bugging me. I'm gonna back off a little bit. You still got the work in.
Exactly.
So, awesome. So any advice for people that are getting involved in strength sports? What's maybe some quick tips you can give someone's like kind of just getting started?
Just like be consistent, and going back to the whole programming side of it, understand that like stress is accumulative. So whatever you're putting, it does like what you're doing to your body in the gym is stress, and to just account for that, like how you're sleeping, how you're eating, and you're going to get a lot further that way by looking at those details than if you just like go to the gym for 5 hours and then fall off a week. And just be consistent, go in for like the long haul, because you probably got into this because you love it. I'm just taking a wild guess because I know I love it and I want to do it for the rest of my life. So let's not mess that up.
Yeah, I think the longevity side is big, and I know for me too, like, I've recently like lost a lot of weight. I went down a couple of weight classes. So it's like, there's like the competitive part of me. I'm like, I just want to put 900 pounds on my back again. But then the other part of me is like, let's pump the brakes. I want to do this for another dozen years. I put, 12, 13 years in already, but I want to continue to do this into my 40s. So let's just be healthier now. We can take a year or two to like chill out, and then we can start to maybe hit the gas a little bit with things. So I think that's great. Same thing like with your back. Let's make sure I'm good. Let's keep this in one piece. Great.
Yep.
Now we can focus on the next meeting. Keep building. Don't be in such a rush. So, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and also like going back to like the whole female thing. I see this a lot of times. Like I have an 18-year-old freshman, never been in the weight room before, and she comes in like looking around, kind of lost, kind of scared, kind of intimidated. Like, don't be scared. No one else notices you as much as you think they do. Just come in, pick some things up, have some confidence, and like and usually people are like way more willing to help than you could ever imagine.
I think that's big. Yeah, I think that a lot of times we're just afraid of the unknown, and that's not just lifting, but just that initial, just breaking inertia and just like getting that first workout in. It's like, I remember like I moved like a little bit like over a year and a half ago, and I joined a commercial gym for just accessories and stuff. And I remember even myself, I'm like, never been in this gym before, and I'm like a gym, like it's like why am I like? It's like I'm like this is like what I do for like a living, but it's just like. I don't know, like I don't know how it's, but like I think we all like get that, like when you kind of step into like a gym for the first time. So, but yeah, I think a lot of times people are much more welcoming than you think and willing to help. And yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help too. So, all right, cool. Well, I had a great time. I hope you had a great time here too. If you want to like plug anything or like where can people, if they want to connect with you or follow you, where can
I have an Instagram, just Kenna Smoak, and that's the easiest way to kind of find me.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely give Kenna a follow. She's great, and I think we need more, definitely people like her in the field. I think it's awesome that I always love talking with other coaches that really like walk the walk and talk the talk as well. So it was great having you. I hope that you'll be back in the future. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It helps other people find us. Please share it if it helps you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.